After weeks of progressive backlash, the Biden administration announced that it would re-extend the freeze on federal student loan payments to May 1st of next year, 3 months after the pause was originally set to expire. The extension, which the White House attributed to the surge of COVID cases nationwide, will impact 41 million borrowers, over half of which have not been making repayments since March of 2020.
Folks, our economic recovery is the strongest in the world. But I know that because of the pandemic, many borrowers need more time to resume payments. For that reason, my administration is extending the pause on student loans repayments for 90 more days through May 1, 2022.
Some progressives are taking the extension as evidence that public pressure on Biden is an effective tactic to get what they want. The Strike Collective tweeted, quote, "Remember, we made them do this. Pressure works." Meanwhile, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez publicly encouraged Biden to consider going a step further, tweeting, "Thank you. Next step, cancellation." Here to weigh in on the freeze and what to expect next is Team Rising. Colin Ruggiero is a Democratic strategist. Rena Shah is a former Republican strategist and an advisor at the Renew Democracy Initiative. Welcome to you both.
Good morning.
Morning. So, Colin, what are candidates who are running in close districts? Because I know you work with a lot of them, either in Senate races or House races. What do they feel about the kind of political implications of either canceling student debt or reinstituting payments?
Well, I mean, let's talk about what's actually been on the table, and that is the reinstituting of payments. I don't think there's a Democratic candidate or current incumbent member of Congress or the Senate that's particularly happy with that announcement. First of all, they announced it in December as we're going into holidays that, hey, you're going to have a bunch of big bills come due in January. I think it was just a strategic error. I don't know why we're not actually seriously considering canceling student debt, because we've got a generation of people who are basically saddled with indentured servitude. And we need to just get rid of it. If you want to actually spur the economy, give the younger generations, including myself, I just finished paying them, the chance to actually engage in the economy in a new way without having to worry about this burdensome debt that exists for 41 million people in the country. I think it was a strategic error, and I think it was a communication error, and I think we should just be actually pursuing cancellation.
But Colin, if you just finished paying them, why can't we ask that of other people who willingly took on debt, who made who borrowed money in order to get an experience and a college degree and to eventually agreed to pay it back? Like, this wasn't forced on anyone. Everyone in debt agreed to do that. This isn't this isn't akin to medical debt or something else where it's some unforeseen circumstance that falls in. These are people who agreed to do this, and now they're saying, oh, well, I got all the benefit of it, but I'm not going to pay it back. You paid it back. Wouldn't you feel it was unfair if everybody else got it, or everyone in this one time frame gets the cancellation, then no one before that and no one after?
Yeah, absolutely, Robbie. That is an incredibly privileged point of view, and spoken from someone who actually probably didn't have to deal with great amounts of debt. I did, and I had a scholarship. So what I think is that America is in a competition with the entire world, okay? And if our students and our young people, and even young adults or adults like myself, are still struggling with paying student debt while the rest of the world doesn't worry about that, and they have the ability to be innovative and not worry about healthcare and not worry about other expenses associated with large amounts of massive debt, we're putting ourselves at a strategic disadvantage. Why would we put the United States at a strategic disadvantage? It's not about whether or not I pay back my loans and somebody else doesn't have to pay back the entirety of theirs. It's about what is good for America and the American economy and the people who live here. So I'm not going to be mad because somebody didn't have to pay back their debt. I'm going to be happy that America is now more competitive with the world, period.
And Rena, what about that? Out of spite, are we making ourselves less competitive just so that we can feel good about having, forcing these kids to pay their loans back?
I have a number of thoughts on why America is not as competitive or innovative as it should be from its student population, for example. But that's an entirely different segment. It doesn't have that much to do with student loan forgiveness. Although I hear Colin's points, and I think they're quite good. I want to distill it down to really the basics here. And I wore something special for you guys today. I don't know if you can see it. The words of Michelle Obama, it is what it is. It is what it is. My generation has sort of been living with this sense of, yeah, student loans, it is what it is. It's this heavy burden you must take on if you want to move forward in society. And I think that's wrong. When I talk about my generation, I talk about millennials born after 1981. I talk about this lack of financial literacy all the time in my generation, where we were not at all schooled or educated in any way by any force, whether it's private or public, about what it means to take on a massive amount of debt for your everyday life. So one thing I've seen happen in later millennials is just to live with it. And frankly, the repercussions of living with it seem less and less all the time. So I don't want to diminish those who are really advocating for full-on cancellation. I come from somebody who was extremely privileged and got a gift of no student loan debt. I want to be very open and honest about that, because it is tough for people like my husband, for example, who went on and got a terminal degree, got an MD, and lives with debt to this day at the age of 40. So now we as a couple, I took that on when I married him 7 years ago. This is a reality for Americans everywhere, that you've got to think about your loans in some way, shape, or form. And it does complicate people's lives. It does complicate their ability to go out there and do more for themselves, which I always talk about when I come here, is moving that station in life. It's no joke that Americans collectively have 1.7 trillion, not million, billion, trillion in student loan debt. And I think it's absurd. So I think we need a real conversation about American higher education. We used to say in the early days of this COVID pandemic, we'll do it after this pandemic washes over. Here we are entering year 3. We know that people, thanks to President Biden, won't have to deal with this until May. But do people even know how to start when repayments begin? Do they even know how to properly do that? My answer to that is I don't think so. But I also don't know that canceling it all outright is a good answer. We know that public opinion is in one place. We know that over 50% of voters do support it, with Republicans, not wanting it so much, and older voters not wanting it so much. Older voters, are saying, hey, why cancel? I had to deal with this. But in general, I just think we've lacked the entire conversation here. We've been really lacking as a society on talking about how we talk about our finances responsibility, how we move forward on paying loans back responsibly, and even taking on things such as home mortgages and dealing with credit card payments. I mean, this is just something, to me, the average American does not have to deal with. I had a gift, and I still felt very, very lost when I came out of a 4-year college. So I just, this is a tough conversation to have, because I understand the plight of lower income Americans. But at the same time, I'm also thinking, where are we going to get people back on track? And I don't know that cancellation's the answer. I don't think so entirely. But I like the pause. The pause.
Colin, so it seems President Biden is pretty moderate on this issue, doesn't want to, or doesn't think he has the power to do the kind of widespread cancellation that AOC type people want. So now he has done this delay, but if he's not going to, politically speaking, if he's not going to do the kind of cancellation, what does the delay make sense? I mean, you're going to have to rip this Band-Aid off sooner or later, and probably the sooner you do it, then the more it will be forgotten by the time midterms roll around or whatever. So does it make sense from like a purely political calculus?
To do it in May? No, I would say no. I mean, May, June, these are primary times in some states. So I think it's still going to be a talking point, and it would be a talking point in November if Republicans want to use it, right? And if I am them, I actually would. Now, I agree with basically everything that Rena said, and I don't know if cancellation is the absolute right answer, but there has to be a way for people to get out from underneath this debt without just saying, okay, I have to make high 6 figures to ever be able to pay this off. That's a ridiculous kind of construct that people have to look at in their lives. There can be a civil service program that enables people to donate some part of their time to improving the country, improving their local community, that would give them the ability to get rid of some of this debt. There's a way to solve this problem. Starting repayments in May, I think, is a bad political calculus. Even if people do forget, it still puts them up to be reminded of it. I would bump it out till next year at the very soonest.
All right. Well, Colin, Rena, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
And we'll have more Rising right after this.